Hoop 7 proudly brings to you Basketball Hustle, featuring your hosts, the writer, Chris Pike, and the scoring machine, Shawn Redhage. Now it's time for another episode of Hoop 7's Basketball Hustle.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Hoop 7's Basketball Hustle. Well and truly towards the middle stage of the NBL season now, and we've been able to bring you 8 shows already here of the podcast. Hopefully you've been enjoying it. We're certainly enjoying bringing it to you, and there continues to be plenty to talk about in the basketball world. The NBL's on fire. LaMelo Ball setting the world alight. The Sydney Kings, even though they look unbeatable on top of the ladder, they continue to get better. Our podcast here is creating some discussion points with the fourth quarter segments that are brought to you by my co-host and the man of the moment, the Perth Wildcats legend, Shawn Redhage. Thanks for joining us once more.
Thanks, Pikey. It's been fun first little part of the year and looking forward to a great second half as well.
Absolutely. Now, one thing we haven't spent much time talking about, Shawn, is what you're up to now. Can you talk us through quickly how you're going with Redhage basketball at the moment?
Yeah, we're really enjoying it. It's grown quite a bit over the couple of years since I retired. We started with about 4 schools. Now I think this term we're running the program at about 28 local schools around the area here in Perth. And we're getting requests for some new schools each term. So it's a lot of fun. Got teaching the kids basketball, and then I've got some elite programs I'm running as well. And a lot of that stuff out of Bendat Basketball Center, and kind of partnered with the Perry Lakes Hawks. So we're teaching a lot of the Hawks players there, hopefully some new moves and developing them. And then also got some tours, got a tour to the United States next year, take a couple teams over there and play high school. So it's keeping me busy, but and that's one of the things when you do finish, you got to find your passion, and I'm really loving what I'm doing at the moment.
Fantastic. If anyone wants to get coached by you or to learn more about it, where can they find some information to get involved with Redhage basketball?
Yeah, you head to our website, redhagebasketball.com is the place to go, and then you just send me an email or give me a phone call. I'm passionate about getting kids better and making sure that they're learning the game the right way.
Hard to imagine many people better to learn from. So if you want to get coached by Shawn Redhage, that's how you can get in touch with him. But let's move on with the show, Shawn, because we've got plenty to talk about, and we're of course here thanks to Hoop 7. So head to hoop7.com.au, special code word HUSTLE, and you can get a special discount. So support those sponsors that support us here at Basketball Hustle. Now we want some feedback as well. Your fourth quarter segments are starting to take off, Shawn. So if you head to our Facebook page, just type in Basketball Hustle, head to Twitter, B-Ball Hustle Pod, or at Instagram, hustle.basketball. Give us some feedback, because your fourth quarter segment last week was a fascinating talking point. The NBL going back to 48 minutes. There's a lot of reasons for it, and I think the one major one is to be more like the NBA. If we want the next star players to come out here and get ready for the NBA, then playing 48-minute games is a massive part of getting ready for taking that next step. So I think if we can provide a game that's as similar to the NBA as possible, then I think that's a huge bonus. But also, one of the points you made last week was with the rosters in the NBL so deep right now, with 11 players, full of quality players, that extra 8 minutes could be career defining for guys to get more court time. And I think it creates an extra 8 minutes of entertainment for people in the stands and people watching on TV. The other point you made last week was that initially it was to fit it into a 2-hour package for TV, but the games are going over 2 hours anyway now, so that seems a null and void point as well. So it seems like it's almost a no-brainer. What sort of feedback have you got from last week?
Yeah, I've talked to a few people about it, and I think they really like the idea. I think the people that, especially the ones that have known the NBL for a long time, have really missed that 48-minute game and what it was able to provide. So, and I think for the young players as well, I just think look at a guy like Reese Baig at the moment. He's only playing a couple minutes here and there, spot minutes, but if he had those extra 8 minutes in a game, well, now he's playing 10, 12 minutes, and probably would have done it for the last couple of years, and his development, I think he's definitely improved, but probably would just give him a little bit more court time out there, which is only going to help. So, and I think it just also gives a different pathway than having to go over to college in America to develop as well, or just being a development player. That can be hard when you're not able to see the court. So I think there's a lot of positives, and with the alignment of the NBA and the NBL, and the fact that the league, these young guys, they don't have to worry about language barriers that they may if they go over to say the Spanish league or somewhere in Europe. The cultures are pretty similar, and now you've got a game that's 48 minutes. They know they're going to get some court time, and they're going to play against quality opposition and get some exposure as well. So I think there's a lot to like about it, and I think that's something the NBL should definitely consider in the future.
Yeah, I think so too. You convinced me on the fourth quarter last week. As a player, the change probably happened halfway through your career. So you had the first half of your NBL career playing 48 minutes, and then the last 7 or 8 seasons playing 40 minutes. Was it much of an adjustment for you going from 48 to 40 minutes as a player?
Look, there was. I felt like each possession was a little bit more magnified in a 40-minute game, and obviously that makes sense. A turnover in a 48-minute game when you're getting 60, 70, 80 possessions in a game may not be. But as soon as you take down 10, 20 possessions, it becomes a little bit more. Those turnovers become a little bit more costly. So you definitely, and I found also you could probably press a little bit more and play a little bit more high tempo defense in a 40-minute game compared to a 48-minute game. And from that regard, but I personally like the 48-minute game. I wanted to be out on the court as much as I could. So, you got more shots, got more opportunities to score. And funny enough, I don't think I won a championship when we were playing 48, but won a couple in the 40-minute game. So maybe it's not a good thing, but I just think I enjoyed the 48-minute game a lot more.
But you did put up some remarkable numbers in the 48-minute game as well, Shawn. And one of those was a triple-double, and you were the last player until Monday night to put up 32 points and 13 assists in a game. The man that took that off you was the youngest man in NBL history to record a triple-double. LaMelo Ball suddenly is the talk of the basketball world right now, and that triple-double was remarkable to see because not only was he putting up numbers, but it was a game-winning performance. He put the team on his back. He made big plays the whole night through, and he just looked like somebody that is already a superstar, even though he's 18 years of age.
Yeah, it's pretty scary when you think how young he is, and he's just putting that. I mean, look, I thought he would play well, and I think the Illawarra has given him basically the license to come out there and play his game, and he's taken that. But he's blown away my expectations. I mean, to get a triple-double in this league, you look at not even a guy like Bryce Cotton has been able to do that. So it's a pretty impressive performance. And, if he isn't already on the map, which we know he is, as far as being the number one pick, you got to think that really, truly puts him into the elite discussion for that opportunity come in a few months' time. So, I think he's turning heads in the basketball world, and it's great to see him do that in the NBL.
What did you make of the game that he played itself? He shot the ball pretty well. He did go 4 of 7 from 3, and he of course hit the big 3 to send the game into overtime. So his shooting's improving, but to me his great strength continues to be getting to the basket because his first step, nobody can keep up with him. He gets to the rim whenever he wants to, and I think that is what makes him a special player right now because he can take anybody off the dribble and then he can finish remarkably. But his passing's always also on point. So once he gets inside the paint, he can either find somebody by dishing off those passes or finish himself. And to me, that's his great strength. And it's probably even magnified now because he's starting to hit some of his outside shots that you have to be mindful of his shooting. I guess you have to get up on him high and then he can blitz by you. Once you've got those two things working for you, it makes you pretty tough to stop.
Yeah, I just think if he's going to have to continue to develop that three-point shot. I think that makes him so much dangerous. I don't think he's ever going to be, like a guy like Steph Curry that's just a knockdown. You have to crowd him and you play him for the three more than the draw. But if he can make those guys be respectable to the three, look at a guy, not saying they have the same but like a Westbrook or a Chris Paul, those guys that you've got to respect at the 3-point line. Maybe not, they're not knocked down 3-point shooters, but you got to respect. And then he's just got the ball on the string. And you're right. When he gets into the paint, that team looks so much better. And that's got to be his mentality the rest of the year, that I'm going to attack, I'm going to make these guys guard me. And then either I'm going to score or I'm going to find a teammate when I get into the paint. And then, they scored over 100 points. He hit that big three, which was always been the question mark with him, but he's a big time player and made a big time shot when the team needed it.
Probably a good comparison. I reckon he's a little bit bigger, but Russell Westbrook, he's a very similar type of player to him. I think he's got a lot of the same traits where you put him into a 48-minute game, you put him into the NBA, and these triple-doubles could become a regular thing for him.
Yeah, well, it seems like everyone's getting triple-doubles in the NBA these days. Yeah. So Russell Westbrook is taking it to another level and averaging a triple-double. I'm not sure he's got the athleticism of a Westbrook. I mean, that guy is world-class in his athleticism, but I think you're right in the way he can get by as defender and then make him play. I think there's definitely some similarities there.
In terms of the other next star players in the league right now, do you feel like LaMelo's a fair way ahead of RJ Hampton? I feel like they came into the league pretty much on even footing. I think a lot of people felt that they were, there wasn't much separating the pair of them. Do you feel like LaMelo's gone a fair bit ahead of RJ at the moment, or how do you see the comparison between the two?
Yeah, I would say that LaMelo is ahead of RJ. There's just those tools. He just kind of got this natural feel for the game, and RJ is a very good player, but I don't think I've been able to see both of them live now, and I'm not sure RJ has that that star ability that LaMelo has on the court. So I think they're both going to be very good players, but I think LaMelo is definitely going to be drafted higher than RJ at this stage.
Very short on words in his interviews, though. I'm sure you've noticed pre and post game. I imagine you probably have to dish out some money to get much more out of him. Is that how you would operate if you're a superstar, like someone as part of the Ball family?
Well, I think he's probably used to having LeVar, his dad, speak mainly for him. So that's actually one of the things I've been waiting for. We haven't heard a lot from LeVar Ball. That's probably been a good thing for LaMelo. But, from a point of view and some publicity for the league, I'm sure we'll hear from LeVar at some stage. And I think it'll be interesting to see what he has to say. But everything's going well and probably better than expected. So he doesn't need to say a whole lot.
The other one is Didi Louzada of the Sydney Kings. Obviously, he's a little bit different because he's already been drafted, but he looks to be almost a finished product right now, even though he's come out to the NBL to develop for a year before playing in the NBA next season. How do you compare Didi a year on from both LaMelo and RJ? How do you compare the three of them?
Look, I think Didi's probably a little bit more of a polished player. Obviously, he can shoot it better than both of those guys. And I think anytime you can shoot the ball, especially from range, it makes him a dangerous player, and just his athleticism as well. So I think all three of those guys will be in the NBA next year, and probably LaMelo might have the biggest impact. But I could see Didi really kind of being that, similar to a Terrence Ferguson, that 3-and-D guy that can knock down the three and then provide some energy on the defensive end as well. So I kind of see his role where I think LaMelo Ball is probably going to have the ball in his hands and be a little bit more showtime in the NBA.
And from an Australian perspective, in terms of a young player, Kouat, he's putting up some good numbers at the Cairns Taipans. He doesn't lack confidence, and he proved that from the start of the season when he came in and said that he wanted to be the best rookie since Joe Ingles that played in the NBL. But suddenly his game is starting to back it up. His three-point shooting's got a lot better. He's a really good rebounder. He's a good athlete. He's not going to be a top 10 pick or a top 5 pick like a Ball or a Hampton, obviously, but he might be a second round smoky for the draft next year. How do you see Kouat development?
Yeah, no, I think he has from the preseason. He had some pretty good games in the preseason, and then as you expect from a rookie, a bit up and down. But over the last few weeks, he seems to be finding his groove, and I like the way he plays. He kind of reminds me a little bit of Mitch McCarron in the way that he can rebound and knock down the three and do a little bit of everything. And I think he'll get a look at the NBA. He'll probably get invited to some summer league and hopefully get his shot there. But if not, I expect him to do some big things here in the NBL over the next few years if he decides to stay in the league.
Now let's keep moving. The Sydney Kings, they are the dominant team in the league right now. They sit clear on top of the ladder at 10-1. They've won their last 4 games. They look invincible, and they've still got Kevin Lish to come back into that team. And like we talked about last week, it looks like Andrew Bogut's still playing on probably a minutes restriction just to try to freshen him up a little bit. So they've got some natural improvement to come, even though they're looking dominant. And now this week they've signed another boomer, someone who was part of the World Cup squad before he got injured, Xavier Cooks. It's remarkable that a team already so good can continue to get better.
It is pretty scary that they were able to get Xavier Cooks. And I remember him he was a development player with the Illawarra Hawks before he went over to college and could hold his own then. And I expect him to do some great things. And let's think about this as well. Southeast Melbourne Phoenix and Mitch Creek, the leading scorer in the league, was actually cut from the Boomers for Xavier Cooks. Yeah. So we're talking about the Sydney Kings, who are 10-1 and look almost unbeatable on a nightly basis, have just signed a guy that was favored over the leading scorer in the league in Mitch Creek. So it's a little bit, the wealthier get wealthier, I guess. And, the Sydney Kings have just added another dynamite piece to that puzzle to a team that I thought was already maybe the most talented we've seen in the NBL. So pretty scary for the rest of the league.
Now, this has become possible over the last 3 seasons once the league has softened the rules on the salary cap. So you can now go over the $1.4 million salary cap. You just have to pay, I guess, for lack of a better term, the luxury tax, which is then supposed to be spread between the rest of the league, however much you spend over it. So are you happy that you're now able to do that? Because clearly, if you have a look at this Kings team, when you've got boomers like Andrew Bogut, Cooks, Lish, Newley, even Kickett. You got 2 outstanding in Jashawn Tate and Casper Ware. You've got your next star in Didi Louzada. And then even you have 9th, 10th and 11th guys, I guess, are Craig Moller, Sean Bruce and Lucas Walker, who are all outstanding players in their own right. Clearly that's a team that is probably 3 or 4 times over the salary cap. Are you happy that the league is allowing that at the moment, or would you prefer a hard salary cap to be enforced like I guess you played under most of your career?
No, and here's why I don't like it. And I think it was one of those things where the NBL was in survival mode and they were trying to keep the teams because we were losing teams. I think they're in a pretty good place. And obviously, if you're from a small market, say a Cairns and Illawarra, and you're gonna say, but how do we compete with that? But let's not forget Illawarra 2 years ago, or 3 years ago, made the grand final under Bevo. So it's not
Illawarra and Cairns, they've made between the 4 grand finals in the last 8 or 9 years.
Yeah, exactly. And why I think that we don't want that hard cap is, you're not going to get a Xavier Cooks to come back if you can't spend a little bit more and go get him. Or you're not going to get a Bogut to come back into the league. You're not going to get some of these talented Australians that we see coming back from Europe now and just making the league better and better. So, in the Wildcats, they may not be able to sign a Bryce Cotton if they can't go over the salary cap a little bit more. Yeah. And so that's where my thinking is, hey, if these teams want to spend to try, obviously that money's got to go back to the teams that probably aren't spending that. I think that's how it works with the luxury tax. I'm not on, I don't know the ins and outs of all of that, but that's my understanding of how it was set up. But I think it's just making the league, and the league's only getting stronger. So, I don't think the league has been in a better position since I've come to Australia almost 15 years ago. So it's, I think if you go back to a hard salary cap, you're actually going backwards.
Yeah, I agree. I think the more talent we can get in the league, the better. The amount of talent on that Kings team is remarkable, but that's exciting for a team like like Adelaide or Cairns or Illawarra who can't spend that money, suddenly if you can upset that Kings team and beat them, it means a hell of a lot more. So it in some ways helps your motivation level because it puts a big target on their back and it fires everybody else up to try to beat them. And I think, obviously it creates for an uneven spending in terms of what each team would be spending. But I think that for the benefit of having that much talent in the league, I think it's a good thing. But what it does for the Kings, to me, it means that it's championship or bust. If this team doesn't win the championship this season, would it be considered a failure?
Well, I think the way they started, we saw a few years ago Sydney Kings started pretty strong. I think they're 8-2.
Especially under Gage, I think they started on fire, yeah.
Yeah, and they kind of fell away, but this is a different team. I don't expect that to happen again. And I think, this is my thinking right now. This is the most talented team I've seen in the NBL. So, but there's a lot of things that have to go right for you to win a championship. So, I don't think anyone in the league is just going to hand them their rings. They're going to have to earn it. And I expect, the way Melbourne's playing, that they're going to be right there in the end, and the Wildcats as well.
Now, the opposite is happening at the Illawarra Hawks, where even though they got a good winner against Cairns on Monday night, they still haven't signed an import replacement for Aaron Brooks, and he's been injured for it must be almost a month by now. I think they were pretty keen on Xavier Cooks, obviously with his dad still working at the club and with his ties to the Hawks. So I think that is one player that fell through that they were hoping to sign. But are you surprised that they haven't been able to secure somebody so far? And if you're the Hawks, do you still try to bring somebody in? And what sort of player do you need to bring in, mindful of knowing that everything you do probably has to make sure that you keep LaMelo Ball happy?
Yeah, well, I think they definitely need to bring someone in. They're sitting on 3 wins at 3-8 at the moment. They're only a couple games out of getting into that top 4 spot. So if they really want to
spot is wide open.
Yeah, if they really want to push for that top 4 spot, they've got to, I think get someone to cover for Aaron Brooks. And we saw how well he played at the start of the year, and I thought he made their team a little bit tougher. I don't think LaMelo Ball is going to be able to get a triple-double on a nightly basis. They probably, I'm surprised that Xavier Cooks, knowing the connection there with the Cooks and the Hawks, that he wasn't there. It probably just tells you that Sydney made a pretty good offer to Xavier and something he couldn't refuse that the Hawks couldn't match. So they're going to have to do some work pretty quickly, though. I would have thought they would have already made a move, and maybe they are, but maybe there's some things in the background as far as getting that player signed and cleared as well. So we'll have to see. But I think if you're the Hawks, you got to try and do something to kind of get yourself back into contention, especially after you get that big win against Cairns to kind of get you back into the thick of things. And I think if they lose that, they go 2-9. That's a little bit harder to come back for them. They've got that third win now. Hopefully that can give them some momentum.
Okay, let's keep moving, Sean. Let's have a look quickly at the Round 8 results from the NBL, thanks to Hoops Heaven. Started on Friday night. It was a high-scoring game. It was an exciting game. An important win for the Brisbane Bullets over the Adelaide 36ers, 106-104. Then on Saturday, the Sydney Kings got the job done in Melbourne against the Southeast Melbourne Phoenix, 90-86. The Cairns Taipans, as you predicted, without Kouat, were able to beat the Perth Wildcats 91-84. And then Melbourne United, too good for the Brisbane Bullets, 108-94. And then in a remarkable high-scoring game, Corey Webster got hurt for the New Zealand Breakers, and the Adelaide 36ers were too good, 117-100. And then, as we talked about before, on Monday night, with LaMelo Ball leading the way, the Illawarra Hawks, too good for the Cairns Taipans, 114-106. What stood out to you from what you saw in Round 8, Sean?
Well, it's probably surprising, and I know we predicted that Cairns would win without Kouat, but the way the Perth Wildcats played in the first 3 quarters, and then to see Cairns go on an 18-0 run against the reigning champs was very, to me, the most surprising result from that round. And not that Cairns won that game, because I know that's a tough game, but as well as Perth played for 3 quarters, and then to kind of it can somehow turn it around was a pretty impressive performance from Cairns in that 4th quarter. It just shows you that you got to play 4 quarters in this league get a win and credit to Cairns. But, the team with Bryce Cotton on there to go, the other team going an 18-0 run, that was surprising to me. And, I think just shows the strength of the league.
The other thing quickly, the New Zealand Breakers now that they've lost Corey Webster, I haven't seen the news on how long he's out for, but if they lose him, then I think it's almost curtains on their season. They're already 2-8. Do you see any way back for the Breakers this season?
It's going to be very tough. It's going to be very tough, especially losing Corey Webster. He was kind of that game breaker that most teams didn't have an answer to, and he can score in bunches. So to lose them, we don't know how long it's going to be for, but I think they are talking about getting Scotty Hobson, who Homicide has said is the best player in the league. So he's really going to have to step up his game if the New Zealand Breakers are going to compete, get back into this. But I don't see them being able to consistently get wins in as tough a league as it is this year. So I think it's gonna be tough. And if I'm them, I'm starting to build that culture for next year and figure out the guys that we want to stay with our team long term.
Okay, that was round 8 in the NBL thanks to Hoop 7. Let's keep moving here on Basketball Hustle. Moving to the interview phase of the show, Shawn, and I've caught up with Lanard Copeland, a man who, by the time you already arrived in the league, he was a superstar from his Melbourne Tigers days. You did spend a little bit of time playing against him towards the back end of his career. What did you know about him when you first arrived in the league, and what do you know about him now, 15 years on?
Look, I just saw the highlights of him and Andrew Gage just dominating the league, scoring 30, 40 every night and throwing alley-oops, Andrew Gage throwing alley-oops to him and just the excitement that he brought. And, he was just a showman out there on the court. So he was great for the league. And I think it was, when the league was in its prime and stuff, that was when they had guys like Lanard Copeland and Al Bruton and just showmen out there on the court. So it's, credit to him. He's really done some great things here in Australia. And, I'm excited to hear what he has to say and what he's up to now that he's not at the Sydney Kings as well.
Thanks to Hoop 7 for bringing us that first segment here on Basketball Hustle for this week. And of course, now that Christmas is nearing, I'm sure everybody listening needs to go out and get some Christmas presents, or you might even need to give some gift ideas to those that are near and dear to you. So who better than to go to Hoop 7 if you're a basketball fan, if you know somebody who's a basketball fan, or if you just need some basketball gear for yourself. There's no better place in Australia than Hoop 7. You can check them out at hoop7.com.au, or indeed if you're in Perth, head to their store in Murray Street. Everything you can ever imagine, from your basketball jerseys, your shirts, your shorts, your socks, your singlets, your jumpers, your jackets, your pants, anything and everything you can imagine. All of your NBA teams are in stock. There's NBL first ever merchandise in stock, including the city jerseys, which you would have seen the NBL teams wearing this past weekend, including RJ Hampton, LaMelo Ball, and your Perth Wildcats stars. Everything you can imagine, from Nike, Adidas, Jordan, all of the big name brands, everything you can imagine. So head to hoop7.com.au, head to their store in person, and when you get to checkout, thanks to Hoop 7's Basketball Hustle, use the code word HUSTLE and you'll get a very special discount. If you're in store, just mention the podcast to the boys in the store and you'll get a special discount. I couldn't recommend them more highly, so please support them. It's Hoop 7, hoop7.com.au. Okay, back here on Hoop 7's Basketball Hustle, and a very special guest this week, an NBL legend, an Australian basketball legend, and as he told me last year, once you become a Hall of Famer, being a Hall of Famer is all that matters. So let's introduce him as that. The Hall of Famer, Lanard Copeland, thanks very much for joining me.
Good to be here, Chris. How are you?
Very good, very good. Now, I'm talking to you on Thanksgiving over in the United States. Obviously, it's a massive time for football. Now that you've been in Australia for, well, almost 30 years, do you still celebrate Thanksgiving, and is Thanksgiving football still a big part of your life?
Absolutely. I mean, Thanksgiving itself is the biggest holiday besides Christmas in America. And, my family, they do the big Thanksgiving dinner and everyone's at the house and watching the football game. So it's sort of a tradition. They've already rang me early this morning. I get home today and there's always football on television. The NBA sort of stepped aside to let the NFL take over. And, I'm a massive NFL fan as well.
Now, you grew up in Georgia. Does that mean you're a Falcons man, or is it more of college football with the Georgia Bulldogs? Where do your loyalties lie?
Our loyalties are host a lot with the Atlanta Falcons, but the Falcons have let me down so many times that I've jumped ship, and I'm now a Green Bay Packer fan. I just like the way Aaron Rodgers throws that ball, and I like the way they go about, their offense and they play. I love the way they play. So, Falcons, I grew up being a Falcons fan, with all the red. But as soon as I got here in Australia, didn't see a lot of football, so I sort of lost touch. But now I'm jumping on the bandwagon. I'm with Green Bay, and I've been with them for about 5 or 6 years.
Was it always football? There was the major sport growing up. Was basketball always sort of just behind football in terms of life in Georgia?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I was more of a football player and a football fan than I was a basketball fan. I started playing basketball at a young age, but I never played for any team or any association or any club. My first uniform, I was 19 years old playing for a Division I college basketball team, which is Georgia State. I got cut in high school my junior and senior year, but then, in football, in high school, my senior year, I played football, and I didn't do quite well. I didn't do that well, but it was something I just loved to do, and I wanted to be a part of a team, and so football was always my first love.
You wouldn't have been a bad running back. Was that your position, or where did you play?
No, I was a wide receiver and a kicker, and extra points kicker.
I don't think that surprises anybody. Once we saw you running up and down the basketball floor, that seems to make a lot of sense. Let's move on to what you're up to now. Obviously, it's been a pretty hectic past 24 months with you back involved in the NBL, obviously assistant coach at the Sydney Kings. What's this NBL season like for you now that you're not as closely involved in the league again?
Well, it's refreshing. Let me just say that much. Look, I enjoyed my time in Sydney. I learned a lot under the great man Andrew Gage, and it's a different game than when we played. The players are more involved, I would say, as far as running the show and telling you what they need and what they want. Whereas back in our day, it was all about just showing up and playing basketball. But, I certainly learned a lot. I wouldn't change anything. We won 18 games last year, which was the best. And then although we finished third, it was the most wins. Melbourne United at 18 and Perth at 18. So although we didn't win a championship, we thought we had a successful year. And I'm very proud of what we did in Sydney, because when we got there, they weren't as good, and when we left there, they were a lot better. So, not every coach is going to win a championship, but if you can learn and move on and try to help someone else, then I think you got to pat yourself on the back.
I think absolutely you can link the successful way they've started this season to the work that you and Drewy and everybody did the last 2 years to get them in this position. Obviously, they've got the talent on the floor, but it's one thing to have the talent. You've also got to have the chemistry there, and you also need, I guess, the backroom staff and everything else clicking as well, which over the last 2 years you could feel like everything was starting to come into place. And now, obviously, if you look at the way they've started this season, everything's continued on that path.
Absolutely. People ask me all the time, are you upset that you guys didn't do as well? And I'm like, no, man, I'm actually very proud of the Kings. I'm proud that we put a stamp on those guys for 3 years. We were there for 3 years without our family. It was, and working under Drewy, it was work. There was no time for play because he wanted to do well, and we put the time in. So, very proud of those guys. Like you said, the people in the background that don't get a lot of attention, those are the ones that make that ship run. And with the players, you got to have talent, and it looks like they're enjoying themselves and get on.
You obviously had a lot of talent to work with last year, but the team they've got this season, now that they've added Xavier Cooks as well, another boomer player who was in the World Cup squad, to Didi Louzada, who looks like being capable of being an NBA star this time next year. Casper Ware's now in that group, and you add those, and Shawn Redhage has been probably the biggest surprise packet. You add those guys pretty much to some of the superstars you had last year, obviously Bogut, and I haven't seen Kevin Lish yet. It's an amazingly talented group that they've got.
And that can go either one or two ways. I mean, if they're unselfish, then you look at them as championship favorites because there's no more talent, no other team as talented as those guys in this league. But then when you add, the other way it can be when you add a Cooks and you bring a Kevin Lish back and try to put those guys in the lineup or give those guys playing time, it hurts the guys that are playing well right now. Now, if they're able to handle it, then I'll say they win a championship. Sometimes you can have too much talent. I know people that know basketball know exactly what I'm saying when I say this. Sometimes too much talent can hurt you because guys become selfish. Guys are worried about their shot, and it hurts the chemistry more than it helps the chemistry.
Well, ultimately, you only have one ball as well. There's only so many shots to go around.
Only one ball in Sydney, that's exactly right.
Massive game this Sunday when Melbourne United goes up to Sydney. There's a great rivalry there that's naturally inbuilt between the two cities. You saw it last year in the playoffs. There's a bit of bad blood between the two clubs. What are you expecting this Sunday?
I'm expecting a dogfight. I'm expecting both teams to come out hard. I know Casper Ware is a true professional, a real player. But then on the other hand, Dean Bickerman, who's the head coach of Melbourne United, will have those boys ready to go. I mean, although they play tonight in Cairns, I think it is, they know in order to win a championship, you got to go through Sydney. So I think they'll be more prepared for the Sydney game than will Cairns, although they're professional enough to win them both. I give the slight edge to Sydney because they're at home.
Now, your playing career was largely throughout the 1990s when you were at your absolute peak, and that's when basketball in Australia was at its absolute peak, and you played in some monstrous crowds, and you played at a time where you guys were superstars. Did you ever think basketball would get to a point where it is now in 2019 where, a couple of weeks ago we had 17,000 people at a Sydney Kings game. We've got NBA superstars, future NBA superstars like LaMelo Ball and RJ Hampton wanting to come out and play in Australia. We've got the eyes of the basketball world in a lot of ways on the NBL. Did you ever think basketball in Australia could get to the point that it's at right now?
Hey, you know what? People ask that question, and everyone says, no, I never thought I did, because in the early 90s, basketball was on the rise. If you were a basketball fan in the 90s, and you played in the rivalry, you played Melbourne versus the Magic, or Melbourne versus North Melbourne, or you played Perth, Melbourne. We played in a championship, in a playoff game against Perth, and we had 15,500 at Ron Laver Arena. So it was on the rise. The early 90s, it was definitely on the rise. Now, Larry's done a magnificent job. You don't want to take anything away from that. And it's still going. And let's hope it can go as far as we want it to go. But I always thought that in basketball, because of the participation kids in Australia and the love for the game, basketball has no ceiling. It can go as far as you let it. And this being a massive, Melbourne especially being a massive football state, basketball is always second fiddle. But because there's so many games on television now, and like you said, LaMelo Ball and all these scouts coming out and the NBA involved, who's to say where it goes? But I'm just absolutely proud that I was a part of it, and I'm proud that I played my part in helping whoever I could and being here for this long in a country that loves the game that I love.
When I spoke to you last year, you talked about how when you were coaching players today, you were trying to get them to have that same attitude that some of you guys had back when you were playing, to have that trash talk and to have that swagger and to want to face up against a guy, dribble the ball and just want to take him on one-on-one and just to have that confidence about you. Is there somebody that you look at in the NBA right now that you wish you could have a one-on-one battle with?
There's plenty of guys. Chris Paul, Casper Ware, Jerome Randall, all these guys that get it done night in and night out would have been the guys that I had to guard. I mean, me and Andrew were the two guards, but I always took the defensive side of things. We love Andrew Gates, but we know he didn't play any defense. We all know that. So, but I would have loved that he had a chance to play against those guys. Now, last year when we had Jerome Randall and Kevin Lish, they used to talk trash to me and Andrew. And used to say, we would kill you guys couldn't do this, we can't do that, and you're too slow. And we'd always say, well, look at the height. Andrew played one and I played two, and you two guys are midget or small. We would just take you to the box and post you up. So I'm sure they would give us their best, and we'd give them our best. But it's a lot of guys in this league that I'd love to have a challenge with.
When I think back to watching you play when I was younger, it was a funny one where I grew up in Geelong. So originally I supported the Supercats, and then I lost them as a team. And then for some reason I'd always support the team that was not the Tigers. So whether it was the Magic or the Giants or whatever it was.
Any other team Tigers.
Yeah, and that was what it was a bit like in Victoria back then. You either loved the Tigers or you hated them. But for some reason, and I'm not just saying this because you're talking to me here, but you were my favourite player, even though I didn't enjoy seeing the Tigers win. How often do you now come across guys that say that you were their childhood hero, and what's that feeling like?
I do a lot of clinics, and I train a lot of kids. I got a program going where I do kids before school. But last week I was doing a program out of one of the associations, and the guy wanted me to come out and sign some autographs and take some photos. It was a singlet day or something. And the amount, and I say this all the time, the amount of parents and grandparents that come up to you and ask for a photo. Kids have no idea who I am. Yep. I mean, I'm 54 years old. They went around. They don't know. They know Ware and Randall and Goulding and those guys. And then their mothers and fathers will come up and say, you know this guy, he was a superstar back in the day, and so it is what it is. I love it. I love the fact that the parents appreciate the time and the effort that I put in. But time doesn't stop for anyone. Time flies. So at the end of the day, my career is over. I just want to hang around and try to help as many young kids as I can to be good players. Because I know once you get to that level, once you get to that elite level, life can be easy.
Now, my co-host on this podcast is Shawn Redhage, and unfortunately he couldn't join us for this conversation, but in some ways, you've got a similar story in terms of coming from, humble beginnings back in the United States. You come out to Australia just for a chance, and you end up becoming NBL superstars, and you end up living in Australia, beyond your careers as well. But in a lot of ways, you couldn't be more different as well. I don't think he quite has your style, and I don't think he quite had your style on the court either. You spent a little bit of time playing against him towards the end of your career. When you think of, and obviously coached against him later on, what comes to mind when you think of Shawn Redhage?
Offensive minded. Shawn Redhage was, you had to change your defense for Shawn Redhage. You had to, when you're in practice and there's a scouting, we call them scouting days, where we talk about players and what they can do and what they can't do and who you can go after and who you can't go after. Shawn Redhage was the type of player where on the defensive end, on the offensive end, you had to make sure that you knew where he was. You had to send a double team when he got the ball. You couldn't leave them open for open shots. So he would make you change your defense. Another guy in mind like that was a Daniel Kickett. Our first year, Daniel Kickett was in Brisbane, and we picked Daniel Kickett up that second and third year. Yeah. And a bit slow, not as athletic, but got it done night in and night out. And so, Shawn Redhage was an absolute gold. He played fantastic basketball for the Perth Wildcats. I mean, whenever you played the Perth Wildcats, the early days was really great. But whenever you played later in the season, it was always Shawn Redhage. So you had to change your defense for a guy like Shawn Redhage.
Now, just touching on what you're up to now, but also your future. When I spoke to you last year around the Hall of Fame time, you talked about how you wanted to be a head coach in the NBL one day, but you probably felt you weren't quite ready. What do you feel like you need to do to get yourself to a point where you can put your hand up to coach in the NBL and try to make the best of it?
Well, first of all, you just need that opportunity. There's only 9 teams in this league, and so there's a stack of guys with their hand up. There's a stack of guys similar to me who played the game and who want to get back. But if you got that opportunity, I'm sure I can handle it. I coach now at a smaller division, at a smaller association called the Altona Gators, and I've coached at Broad Meadows, and I've coached at all these different smaller associations. So that's not the problem. The problem is getting the right people with you. I mean, it's a job that you can't do by yourself. You're going to need great coaches around you. You're going to need great people in the office. You're going to need talented players. So, these coaches that win all these games, everyone looks at them as if they're geniuses. But I don't care if you don't have the horses, it's not going to work. You don't have good assistant coaches around you to help you because you can't see everything. You don't know everything. You can't hear everything. So you're gonna need that whole group of people around you to help you out. So, and that's where a lot of coaches are letting themselves down because they want to try to do it all themselves. But honestly, I've been around long enough to know you gotta have a support staff. If you don't, then it's not gonna work.
Absolutely. Now, just finally, I've caught you fresh off the golf course, and you had a round with Andrew Gaze, Nigel Purchase, and I think it was Mark Bradkey. Who's the best out of the 4 of you?
Mark Brackey's the best out of the four. Today, I was the best. I actually won today. I shot a 43, and we only play 9 every Friday. But here's the remarkable story. Mark Brackey just had a knee replacement 5 weeks ago, and today was his first day back on the golf course, and he shot a 45. It was amazing. He's going around in a cart. He walks, but he still hits that ball straight and long. But we all, me, Davey, and Nigel are all about the same. But Brackey's probably a little bit better than us, but today we need the gold medal.
Very good. Well, Lanard, I mean, it's an absolute pleasure getting to talk to you anytime I get the chance to, and I could keep talking to you all day, but I do need to let you go because you've got a busy life to lead. But thanks very much for joining us here on Hoop 7's Basketball Hustle, and all the best for whatever the future holds.
Chris, my pleasure, and I'm sure I'll speak to you again, my friend.
Well, it's fourth quarter time, thanks to Devlin's and Subiaco. And today I want to talk about something that I've been thinking about over the last few weeks, especially with the success of the Next Stars program and where the league is headed. What's the next thing they can do to really take this league to what they're aiming for, to be the second best league in the world? And my idea is to bring the NBA Next Star team and play them out of Canberra. And the reason for this, one, you've already got the center of excellence there. So you bring an actual NBA players that don't want to go to college, but want to play in a professional environment, get themselves ready for that NBA season in the year or two, and actually put them in a team. And so they become the NBA Next Stars team. And now they play against these NBL teams in the NBL, in the league. And maybe they don't play a full home schedule. Maybe they only play 1 game versus every team, and then they play 2 on the road. But what's going to happen is you've got LaMelo Ball coming to Perth twice a year. Those teams, the crowds are going to come out and want to watch these future NBA stars play. And you can say that you saw them when they were still before they became NBA superstars. And I think they're going to be a big draw card. The NBA is starting to really get their foot into the junior development world as well. They've got their NBA junior world championships that they run now. And so you're just starting to see they're thinking long term, but they've never really had a team like that progress. And I think it's just a great opportunity for the NBL and the NBA to align, and for the NBA to actually send a whole team. Now, if you had LaMelo Ball, RJ Hampton, Didi, Louzada all on one team, and maybe you throw in a few more either imports or second rounders to kind of make sure the team is competitive. But I think it's an exciting concept and something that no other league in the world would have. And the fact that Australia and USA are pretty similar in cultures, and obviously the language barriers that these guys may have if they go overseas to, say, a European country. I think there's a lot of benefits there to bringing an NBA Next Stars team, and I think Canberra is a logical location for it. You've got the AIS Arena. You would get government support. You've already got the NBA Academy over there as well. So there's a lot of facilities, especially that center of excellence. We know how many NBA guys have actually come out of the Australian Center of Excellence and into the Boomers and on their way to the NBA. So they do a great job of development, and I think it's the next step for these guys as far as pathway, and it gives them a legitimate pathway. You know, they can come over to Australia, play a year or two, earn some good coin, and then they go on to play professional, or maybe they even stay out here. Maybe they love it and they turn into Lanard Copeland and become a lifer out here, or say myself as well. You know, love the Australian culture, and you get more guys exposed to what the great lifestyle we have here in Australia. So I think the NBA Next Star initiative, I would be great, and then you would have a whole team of these future NBA superstars come out here and play, and those guys see each other on a regular basis, whether it be playing AAU ball. So they become friends. So, you get one or two and they talk to their friends. All right, we're going to bring out a whole team. We got the top 10 players. Instead of going to college, they come out here. It's a legitimate pathway. They can earn a little bit extra money. They learn what it's like to be a pro. I think that it's an exciting initiative and something that would really stand out and put the NBL even further on the world map as far as development and where it's leading into the future. So love to hear your ideas on if you think this is a great idea, if you don't like it, what would work. Maybe you have a better idea. Love to hear from you. Let's get in touch with us over social media and we'll do our best to get back to you. That's the fourth quarter segment this week.
Okay, thanks, Shawn, for that fourth quarter segment. Hopefully it gets people talking. It's a revolutionary idea, but I like it, and we'll talk about it more next week on the show and see what sort of feedback it's got as well, because I think it's an idea that certainly has some legs, and thanks to Devlin's for bringing it to us. Now let's move into a preview of round 9, because things are starting to heat up, and I think a lot of us feel like the top 3 positions are pretty secure. It's just a matter of which order Sydney, Perth and Melbourne end up finishing in, but that 4th place, I think almost everyone can still finish in that 4th spot, maybe except for the Breakers, but some of these games are now going to be really crucial in deciding who ends up in 4th spot. So let's get into a preview of this weekend's action, and it starts Friday night. The Cairns Taipans, speaking of needing to win, they need to bounce back because they would have been disappointed to lose in Wollongong on Monday night. They've already beaten Melbourne United once at home this season. Can they do it again on Friday night?
Well, look, they've beaten the Perth Wildcats twice. They beat Melbourne. They had their chances. The LaMelo Ball 3 sunk their chances there in Illawarra and sent it to overtime. So, I think Cairns are starting to kind of find their groove a little bit. And, but I think Melbourne United, they've won 5 straight. They're on a roll. I think they'll get this one, and just the way they're playing.
Then the first game up on Saturday, New Zealand Breakers, Illawarra Hawks. I'm sure there'll be plenty of attention on RJ Hampton playing against LaMelo Ball once again, as we saw the first time they played over at Spark Arena. It was a full house, and the eyes of the basketball world were on this game. It's a crucial game for both teams, though, if they want to keep their seasons alive.
Well, I expect there to be a lot of NBA scouts there for that one. And there's going to be a lot of attention, especially after LaMelo Ball's triple-double. So, and that's the great thing. I mean, you look at these two teams, and they're bottom of the ladder, but the excitement that they bring because they've got RJ Hampton and LaMelo Ball is fantastic. So I'm looking forward to that matchup as well. I just think Illawarra will get this one with as New Zealand Breakers. If they're without Corey Webster, I think it's going to be hard for them to get that win.
And second up on Saturday, Brisbane Bullets playing the Southeast Melbourne Phoenix. The Phoenix, their second game only now for the season, away from Melbourne. The first time in Perth didn't go to plan when they lost by 30 points. Can they travel to Brisbane and get the win?
Yeah, I think it's, they haven't really been road tested yet. And the one road test you did, and the Wildcats, had their way with them. So, and Brisbane Bullets are still, they're a little bit up and down, but I think at home they'll get this one over the Southeast Melbourne Phoenix.
Then first up on Sunday, Shawn, has all the hallmarks of a classic game. Sydney Kings, Melbourne United at Kudos Bank Arena. I would expect well and truly over 10,000 people there for the game. They're the two informed teams of the competition. Could be a grand final preview. What are you expecting?
Well, I'm just looking at the Paul Smith, the Kings owner, discussion on Twitter, and this is his comments. This is personal. Our team and supporters were not treated very well in Melbourne a few weeks ago. Get off the ledge, Sydney. I'll be unhappy if our fans don't throw a moped off level 2 onto the court. So you can see where the Sydney Kings are looking at this game. They're happy last time they were in Melbourne and be looking for revenge. The only team to beat them this year so far. So it should be an explosive matchup. And I think Sydney at home should get this one, and Casper Ware to get revenge on his old team.
Are we expecting Xavier Cooks to play, or when are we expecting him to first play? Do you know?
The fact that he's not an import, he's coming back as an Australian, I think it should be quicker than you would think. So I expect him to line up. Now, how much court time he's going to get on a team that's 10-1 and that is rolling will remain to be seen. But, he might take some minutes off some of the other guys, but I don't expect him to play massive minutes, but I'm sure they'll introduce him into the team pretty slowly.
Last up in round 9, the longest and oldest rivalry in the league. Perth Wildcats and the Adelaide 36ers at RAC Arena. Tough one to call because both of them need a win. Both of them are a bit up and down at the moment, and you add in the rivalry factor, and it's always a game to look forward to.
Yeah, and Adelaide played them well. It was only they just got over the line against them. Some Damian Martin-inspired defense there and some big shots, I think, from Tarico White got them the game over there in Adelaide. So, but it is different when you're playing at RAC Arena, and the Perth Wildcats will be upset they're lost to Cairns. So I expect them to come out with a little bit more energy on defense and see if they can complete 4 quarters.
What do you know about Tarico White's status? Do you expect him to play?
Well, look, just some footage. It looks like he's been training, so he's been out there, not full on training, but I expect him to play. I mean, he's had the full week, and the fact that he's out there on the court during this session or during the week should hold him in good stead. The fact that the game's on Sunday, so he's got a few extra days to get ready.
There we go. It should be a fascinating weekend of NBL action. There's been plenty to talk about on this show, Shawn. It's been a jam-packed show when you think about everything that's happening across the league, and you add in our guests as well, plus your fourth quarter segment, which we desperately want your feedback on. So get in touch with us through any of our social media channels, and we'll discuss your comments next week here on the show. Thanks always to Hoops7, hoops7.com.au for bringing it to you with the support of ID Athletic and Devlin's. We're enjoying bringing this to you, so hopefully you're enjoying listening. We'll be back again next week, but before we leave you, Shawn, what can you leave our listeners with for another week?
Well, I think you're right, Pike. We want to hear what's your thoughts on the NBA Next Star program happening out of Canberra potentially, and what that does to the league. Could it give the exposure and kind of build the NBL, which is what their grand plan is, kind of be the second best league in the world. So I'm interested to hear your thoughts on that. Is it a good idea? Is it a bad idea? Let us know.
Bye, have a great time.